Welcome to Transportation Talks, brought to you by the Transportation and Supply Chain Institute at the University of Denver. Heather Sheehan launched Transportation Talks in 2020 and moderated great conversations with transportation leaders for the past 3 years. She's chosen to take a sabbatical, and I'm stepping in to fill her heels. I'm Michelle Livingstone, and I've been in the transportation industry my entire career. Most recently, I was the vice president of transportation at the Home Depot, and I did that for nearly 14 years. I chose to, as I like to call it, rewire in 2021, and I'm now engaged in the industry through various board roles and fun opportunities like moderating transportation talks. I am thrilled to be here, and I hope you're excited too. We've got a great session. Just as a couple quick housekeeping items, these go fast. They're 30 minutes long, and so time will definitely fly by. And if you have questions, we certainly welcome that. And I encourage you to hit the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and submit your questions as early as possible so that we can get those worked into our conversation. We are now ready to start our talk with Shelley Simpson, president of J.B. Hunt Transport Services, one of the country's largest supply chain solutions providers in North America. Shelley, please join me on camera. Good afternoon. It's great to see you, and thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to be with us today. Let me jump right in. You were promoted in August of 2022, and we were all so excited to hear the news. That puts you in a club of only 12% of female CEOs and presidents, and that's across all industries. When you first joined J.B. Hunt nearly 28 years ago, did you have the dream and desire to become president and potentially CEO and board chair one day?
Well, I think anybody that has that dream and desire, I would love to follow and let them be my mentor, because I sure didn't think that far out. I had a dream to start paying off my bills and get a great job. And this was actually my short-term summer gig until I could get my real job, Michelle. But as I got into the position, I actually started in an hourly role inside the organization 2 weeks after graduating college at the University of Arkansas. And so I started here mainly because I had a friend that said, "Hey, I'm going to work at J.B. Hunt in marketing." And I was like, "Ew, like trucking? What do they have in marketing?" And he was like, "Hey, what are you doing, until you get the job you want to go get?" And I was like, "Well, I'm working at a preschool. This job paid $2 more an hour." And I thought, I'm going to start my job there. And, it was the people that I was around, me listening to mentors. But as I got into my career, I loved my work. I loved the company. I met my husband here. I started having children. And really when I started having children, I actually went in to quit the company.
Wow.
At about 8 years in, I just wasn't sure that I could manage everything. I didn't have the confidence that I could be a great mom and a great wife and a great worker all in one. And so I went in to quit. My boss at the time, who was our COO, stopped me right before I quit and said, "Wait a minute, you can be a great mom. You can be a great worker, and we're going to work it out." And that was a time, Michelle, when flexibility, maybe other companies had it. You got to go back to 2001. There just wasn't flexibility, especially in our business. It is a 24/7, 365. And, I went to a more flex schedule, but then I got pregnant and I had a 2-year-old and twin girls on the way. And so I did walk in and say, "Listen, I can't stay full time." At that time, I was a vice president. And again, my leadership was amazing. Still same leader, Craig Harper, who's been with the company over 30 years now. And he said, "Okay, what do you want to do?" And I said, "I really want to take a step back and go part-time." And so for about 2 years, I spent part-time Monday, Wednesday, Friday, raising a 2-year-old and twin girls. And I knew I just wanted to stay home until my kids went to school. I loved my work. It was just really managing all my priorities and making sure that I could do a great job for everyone. I didn't want to shortchange anything. And, I will say this, my dad raised me. I heard this over and over and over. You could be president of the United States if you put your mind to it. I always, would do this. That's what a dad would say. But his whole concept was you can do anything. And he put that in my head just on a regular cadence. So he had big dreams. And so I think I did have big dreams. Did I think I would be president? No way. I just wanted to be a great mom, a great wife, and contribute greatly to a company. Fortunately, I came to a company that I love, and I love the work, but I mostly love the people.
That's awesome. And you can definitely do it all. You can't do it all the time. So I know that had to have been really tough decisions, and I'm so glad that it worked out the way it did. And good for you for, using your voice and sharing what it is that you need to be successful. That is great. So just a follow-up question to that, how did you prepare for becoming the president of JB Hunt Services? I know some companies have a very streamlined succession plan and others don't. How did you approach it?
Well, if they had a succession plan, I didn't know about it. But I will say, when I came back, I actually stepped into a senior vice president role when it came back full time in 2005. And it was about a year later that I stepped into my first executive role. And so I served my last now 16 years in different executive capacities. So I led 2 of our business units as president. I also led as a chief marketing officer, chief commercial officer. And then just before, and I think this was great preparation, just before taking on this appointment, John Roberts, our CEO, actually slid me in incremental to my current responsibility. I added EVP of people. And I thought that was a great move. It was really a way to say our company's exploded in growth. We've added so many people. He really wanted me to set up what I wanted that to look like and how we could be more strategic in that area. So I do think that was a good move, but I had probably 6 different executive roles in the organization. And so I feel like that really helped me have a better perspective. I don't know if anybody can quite prepare. It's a great job, whether it's at my seat, Michelle, or any of the new roles I had. I did the very most, and I thought I knew what I was going to be doing. And then certainly when you get in, you get a little bit of, do I really know what I'm doing? But you know that you're prepared and you've done the best work that you can, and now you're stepping into that new role.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes folks have more confidence in us than we have in ourselves. And certainly John chose wisely. So, I applaud him for that. That's great. So now that you're much more empowered at your current level, can you share any changes that you're contemplating making organizationally or operationally?
One of the things people might not know about our company. So we have about a 61-year-old company. It took us nearly 59 years to get to about 9.6 billion. And then the last 2 years, we grew 50%.
Wow.
So we're just under a $15 billion company. So think of what that growth is. That growth is for our people who created that growth. And if you look inside the organization, when I started, Michelle, we had just celebrated, I just missed it. We'd celebrated $1 billion in 1993. And I started in 1994, and I literally thought, well, I got to leave here. I mean, this company's already made it. They're already $1 billion. So, what room would there be for me to contribute? And I'm 22. Our CEO says growth is oxygen. And I love that because it's so true. If we're a growing organization that's healthy, our people get to grow as well. And so it's not uncommon for you to come in the company and find a lot of people that start their career just like I did and rise up in the company. We're a promote from within culture. And so I think what's really great, our executive team, and this might floor some people, the average tenure in our executive team at JB Hunt is 25 years.
Wow.
And when you have a team that's been in the company for as long, and we've sat in our executive management meetings for more than a decade together, there isn't a lot of things that we need to go change. Now, what we do need to do is work in the environment that we're in today. And we need to think about what are we really great at and what can we accelerate? What can we put our foot on the gas? And so our focus of making sure that we take care of our people first is going to be a core focus for us. So we call that people you trust. We're constantly going to be thinking about how do we empower people with technology, and then making sure we have capacity to deliver on our customers' commitments, because our biggest focus is driving more value for our customers. That will bring industry-leading growth and returns. That allows us to reinvest into our people and shareholders.
Yeah, that's great. That is really good and very exciting. Okay, so you've mentioned that you've been in the transportation industry since 1994. Did I hear that right? And clearly the industry has not been very diverse, and yet we all recognize the benefit diversity brings. It seems like JB Hunt actually recognized that sooner than some of your competitors. How are you looking at diversity now, and the whole diversity, inclusion, equity, and belonging, and what do you feel JB Hunt has benefited by that perspective?
Well, I think one of the things we had to do, Michelle, is to say, what do we want to do for JB Hunt? There were a lot of different opinions around what people should do or companies should do, but we have a culture of people staying in the organization, being more family oriented, and we were growing like crazy. And so one of the things that we did was settle in on what were we going to call it? I think there's a lot of confusion with acronyms and what people say and what does that mean? And so I found that there was conflict when we would use certain terms, but there was one term that I think everybody can get behind. And so we call our effort our inclusion effort. And for us, it's making sure that all 37,000 of our people, all 37,000 feel welcome, heard, safe, valued, and respected. And that means if you just started from college and you have 2 weeks experience, do you feel valued? If you've been here for 35 years, do you feel like we respect you? If you live in Portland, Oregon, and you're doing local dray work for us, do you think that you have the same level of connectivity and voice that someone here in Lowell, Arkansas does? If you're a mechanic underneath the truck, do you feel like we include you? So for us, it's how do we think of the umbrella of inclusion? And that really changed the mindset of the way everyone thought about it. So it's not one or the other. It really is everyone. And so for us, diversity is a result of us being inclusive. So how diverse we are in perspective. So if I can listen to other people's perspectives, Michelle, I'm going to seek that out to say, hey, what else could I go learn? And then we will bring in diverse perspectives and things will change over a period of time. And I think that's something that needs to change. If you look at our driving community in the industry, it is heavily male dominated, which is awesome. We don't want to change that. What we want to do is we don't want anybody to change wanting to be a truck driver, but we do want to make sure that females know there's a great professional truck driving job for you too. And so how can we bring in both groups of people? That's one example. But I will say this, I think from a perspective of how do we do it, I think that's the hard part of how we do it. For us, we established an inclusion office. And that inclusion office has full-time resources, a budget. We weren't doing this because it was popular or becoming in vogue. We really wanted to do it because we started our first employee resource group in 2014. And that's called GROW, Growing and Retaining Outstanding Women. And we started having this great movement of, professional development and connectivity and how could we think more? And we started adding to that. So we added our lead, and that's our Latino ERG. We added Plus, which is our LGBTQIA. We added Emerge, which is African-American. We've added Veterans, which are very important to us. And then most recently we added Capital, which is our Asian American Pacific Islander group. And my point is our journey, we didn't just come up with this. We've been on this journey. And by the time we got to early 2020, we recognized we needed to create an office. And so that office is there to support everyone on this inclusion journey. But I think the other part to that, Michelle, we have an inclusion council. And that inclusion council serves as the advisory board made up of our most senior leaders in the company that believe that inclusion is something that is going to benefit all 37,000 of our people. And so that team is who gets to listen to what are all the things that we want to do, and do those make sense? And that team is made up of, our senior leader in maintenance, our senior leader from our field locations, our leadership in finance, our leadership just across the organization. So we're getting a full spectrum so that every voice in our company will be represented at the table. And I think that's been a major movement. And, a result, we have just under 5,000 members in our EOGs. And so for us, we're excited. We love what we're doing. Now, we're not going to do what everybody wants us to do, but we're going to do everything that we believe is right for JB Hunt and, more importantly, right for our people. And so that's our focus, and that's how we think about inclusion.
Yeah, that is awesome. I feel your passion, and I think that's tremendous. So thank you for sharing that. So obviously the industry still has a way to go. And I'm just curious, what advice would you have to others about trying to improve diversity overall as an industry? Because it's really hard to attract diversity if folks don't feel like the transportation industry is a good place for them to be.
Well, I think it depends on which area you're talking about. When you think about transportation, we have our professional driving jobs, we have our maintenance teams, we have our office teams and our warehouse teams. If you actually look across at least JB Hunt, and I think this is the case for the industry as well, you're going to find a more diverse workforce than maybe what people think in general. And so if you look across those working groups, each one of those working groups really, I would say Caucasian, even when you look at the driving community, Caucasian is actually going to be less than 50%. And when you look at maintenance, something very similar. In office, you're starting to see movement there. And that's across the industry, and certainly at JB Hunt. Where you probably don't see as much diversity is when you see female versus male. And I've talked about that overall. I think one thing that we have to do is make sure that everyone knows that transportation is for everybody. We move America's goods, and it's important and it's essential to really America, but also the work that we're doing. It has purpose and real meaning. And I think when we can grab a hold of people from a heart perspective to say, you can do really great work with lots of different degrees and come work at JB Hunt or come work at one of our other really great competitors, but having more people know, oh, that job is for me. One of the ways that we do that is, how do we get further back into high schools and colleges and trade schools to make sure people know what options and opportunities are available? We've really worked hard on that. We've got great connection with an organization called WISE, Women Impacting Supply Chain Excellence. And that, I think, Dr. Stephanie Thomas.
I do. Yes, it's a great organization.
And that actually started here at the University of Arkansas. We have been heavily engaged, but it's actually branched out nationally. And so people start to say, wait, there are my degree in supply chain, I could go do what? Oh, that's really cool. And so it starts to open up people's ideas behind what we do. Trucking is an important part of what we do. And being a professional truck driver, there's no better or more noble profession that you could be in. But there are a lot of other jobs that help support our professional drivers on the road. And so I think awareness is one of the keys. But if you're an organization, you have to start somewhere.
Yes, absolutely.
So you have to start with, I've kind of given a few people these things. Maybe start an ERG, and what ERG? Talk to your people. It's not a social club. It's for business purpose. And so what are the things that we could do that would be connecting for our people, and it would make sure to include all people? And so that's kind of an easy way to get started, getting connected to those colleges and high schools. That's another easy way to get started. But the other thing I would say is buy-in at the top. At the very top of the organization, there has to be crucial conversations that you align on strategy and what you want to get accomplished from it. And as long as everyone's bought in, everybody will do the right thing.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you for that. That provides a lot of inspiration. So we often talk about the importance of women being at the table. You can't come into a conference room and sit on the sidelines and then expect to be heard and seen. And you've recently been hanging out with some really interesting people. Damon John of Shark Tank fame was, I'm sure, quite interesting. And then I was so excited to see you on the stage with John Mueller, CEO of Procter & Gamble, because that doesn't happen a lot. We don't see a lot of CEOs of CPG companies or retail with carriers. So I thought that was awesome. So just curious, two things. Did you have any key takeaways from those two events? And what advice would you have to help women find their seat at the table?
I got really great advice back in 2001. It was my very first opportunity to be able to sit at the table. And I had moved into what I would say like head of finance, and we were presenting a budget. And Michelle, I had to present it to our chairman, our CEO, our entire executive team, and I was scared to death. And I think that's what holds us back a lot of times is just like, what if they ask me a question and I don't know the answer? And what I heard, and I heard this from Craig Harper again, he looked right at me because I said, oh, my stomach's hurting. And I was presenting the budget. And this was a business unit that wasn't making money. And I was the lead to say, here's our plan for next year. And it was, progress, but I knew would not be accepted over the long term. You know what he said to me? You are the expert. You're the expert, and you know more about this plan that's been put together than anybody in that room. And if somebody asks you a question that you don't know, just answer simply with, you know what, I'm not sure, but let me get back with you. Best advice. I heard that just before I walked in. Now my stomach still hurt. But you know what could I be scared of? I was so prepared. So number one, preparation is key to give you confidence that you can walk in. But number two, you are the expert on what you're presenting or you wouldn't be presenting. So I would say those are kind of core to me so that when I do present, I make sure that I do really hard work. I really take it serious to say, all these people are spending time. It's my responsibility to make sure that their investment is worth it. And so I would say this, I had to follow Damon as the keynote. I was like, oh, I'm not funny at all. And I don't have anything to sell. And he's got a cool vibe, he's a hip hop. But here's what I picked up. Number one, I love listening to his leadership. I pick up on that. I always try to hear other people's leadership so that I can think about how can I incorporate those things that I like or I admire. Same thing with John, with Procter & Gamble. He had such a confidence about him and just didn't rattle. I always look for who else can I learn from? I'm a learner, lifelong learner. And, I appreciated it. I feel like I knew I was my expert of our company and what we do. So I really didn't have a lack of confidence doing that. I think you can take that all the way down to when I was very first in that leadership position back in 2001. And I keep that. I tell people it all the time that are nervous. And I'll say, you are the expert. Nobody in the room, including me, know this as well as you do. Remember that when you get to talking. So I think that was important to me. So I would say, just know your material. If you've not done your homework, you should be scared.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that is great advice. And you mentioned being a lifelong learner, and I think that's phenomenal. And JB Hunt is clearly committed to education. Was it last year? I guess actually right as you came on board as president, announced a multi-million-dollar investment in the University of Arkansas. And now it's the JB Hunt Transport Department of Supply Chain, if I got that right, which is cool. Very cool. And clearly you've been, JB Hunt's been a strong supporter of the Transportation and Supply Chain Institute at the University of Denver. And, we're so excited to have Stacy Griffin, who's both a graduate of the program and very, very accomplished in her job as SVP of Intermodal Pricing as well. And she's been terrific to addition to the board for sure. And she has her MBA. So she got her master's, executive master's after she already had her MBA, which I thought was also really telling as well. So what is it about the Supply Chain Institute at DU that works for JB Hunt to send students to? Because almost every cohort has at least one or two really high potential students that add so much value to the class.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. We do believe in investing in our people, and education's a critical component to that. And we like to think about things over the long term. And so you mentioned the University of Arkansas. That was something we've been working on for 10 years. So it wasn't something, Matt Waller, who's the dean there, and myself had spent time thinking about how could we really shape the future of supply chain together. And then when you think about DU, this was an idea from 20 years ago. So we're on our 20th anniversary sending people to Denver University. And it was, one of the first specializing in intermodal. That's critical, obviously, to the work that we do. And we always look at that as an opportunity to send our high potential team members to that so they can get a broader education, broader thought process, and be able to bring that. And we can use that inside the organization. Remember, I told you a lot of people come in the company and they stay in the company. So the people that are showing up there, they're people we know have big futures inside our organization and are going to be able to contribute greatly. But also it's the ability to connect and collaborate, stay together over a longer period of time as alumni, but it's only an 18-month program. So if you think about the commitment that you have to make, it's really a pretty short commitment of being away, because you do have to go to Denver. And so about 6 weeks or so, but the rest of it's going to be done right there from where you're at. And so I think that the combination of learning more broadly, connecting with other industry leaders, and having that connection over a long period of time, we have found that to be wildly successful. And for perspective, our very first person that went through the program is now our Senior Vice President of Intermodal. And so that gives you great perspective. Stacy clearly is a Senior Vice President. I think every key leader in Intermodal has been to Denver University.
That's great. Well, we're going to pause here and just take a look at the Q&A. So if anyone's looking to add questions, now's the time. So we have one question that came in saying, how do you see the explosion of AI impacting JB Hunt and the transportation industry in general?
Well, hi, Harry, and thank you for that question. So I think it's not just impacting us in transportation, it's impacting everyone and how we think about that. I've read so many different things of automation and what's going to happen in the future. And I think anything that we can do to take out the redundancy of work. I remember when I started in the company, I thought, why am I doing this? I didn't get a college degree to do this monotonous work, parts of my job. If that had been automated and I could have spent more time focusing on time with my customers and solving problems, there's certain things that won't ever be able to be automated. Relationships are hard to automate. You can automate a transaction. It's hard to automate a relationship. And so we talk about that a lot, is AI will do a lot of automation, it'll create a lot of efficiency. We need a lot of efficiency. Think about supply chain costs in general and the explosion of increases that have happened because of inflation. If we could tamper that and start to bring that down, I think there's going to be great jobs for people. It's just going to change the way in which we work. I also think the level of data that we will have. I remember back in the day having to go pull data from different resources, put it in an Excel spreadsheet and have to figure out what to do with it. No more will that have to be. You're going to have data at your fingertips to be able to make fast decisions and smart decisions. I think it'll make companies healthier, Michelle. Over the long term, I think companies will be able to recognize what's not good business faster versus waiting for reporting to come out or something that's not more dynamic. I think that's going to really impact us in a very positive way.
Yes, I'm been very excited about the data science that has come to transportation and the speed and value and accuracy of the conversations, and everyone working off the same set of information has been tremendous. So I applaud you for that for sure. So we are running a little tight on time here, but just want to find out, JB Hunt has certainly reinvented itself every few years, it seems. I mean, when you think about, kind of being leader in intermodal and final mile and JB Hunt 360, and knowing that you want to be the supply chain solutions provider mentality going forward, I think that's a great strategy. What's the next big thing that we can look forward to?
Well, we get asked that a lot. And when I think about our organization, although we're really large in our space, Michelle, from a competitive perspective, it's actually a huge market. So I shared we're 15 billion. The market that we serve is about 660 billion. So we can do really great work with our current customers and new customers. And so for us, we're going to be focused on North America. That's really our sweet spot, what we're really great at. We really let our customers take us to where we think we can add value. It's logically adjacent and we can make a fair return. And so anything that has a bigger opportunity, we're going to think about and focus on. But I'll tell you, I think in 10 years, we're going to look up and we're going to be really great in our 5 core business units. We might have another one because our customers will lean in and say, hey, have you thought about this? We're very neutral in the way we think about our business. So we actually don't do capital allocation to say we have to grow, and so here's who needs to go do it. We start with, what do our customers need? And now how do we build that plan around it? And sometimes our business units, kind of complement each other so that we can have a more stable but growing profitability and be sustainable for our customers long term. So I will tell you, we're going to keep focusing on what we're really great at, but we are going to drive customer value. And that if we focus on our customers and we make sure that we do things that are sustainable, we will grow, we will be healthy, and we have the business units that can help support that growth.
That's great. One other question did come in, and I think you answered it, but let me just run it by you, talking about outside of the points you've mentioned, what sets J.B. Hunt apart compared to other transportation companies when it comes to logistics and supply chain. Did you have anything else to add?
I do want to say one thing. Since I have been in to this role, I've spent a lot of time with our teams, and I have visited about 55 different locations since August. And most people say this, but I'm going to say I firmly believe our people set us apart. It's why we firmly believe that people you trust is important to us. It's my job, it's our executive team's job, it's our leadership team's job to make sure our people trust us. If we focus in on our people, they're going to take care of our customers. And so for us, we think about our differentiation. We're great in a lot of our services, but so are some of our competitors. Everyone has intermodal, everybody has truckload, everyone has dedicated, but what can set us apart is how our people respond to that, how we respond organizationally, and making sure we stay healthy. And I think for us, that would be our number one differentiator.
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, Shelley, it's been delightful having you on the first Transportation Talks of 2023. We so appreciate all the information that you provided. And I know you've got a long runway, and I can't wait to see everything that you accomplish. So that is wonderful. To our guests, we appreciate you turning into Transportation Talks. Please let your colleagues know if they missed this event that it's going to be available in about a week on their favorite social media platform. So be sure and catch that. And the next Transportation Talks will be in July, when we have another fantastic transportation leader speaking. So stay tuned for more details. And if you're interested in earning your executive master's in transportation management with a concentration in supply chain, please consider University of Denver Transportation Supply Chain Institute. I think you'll be really pleased with the outcome of that. So on that note, thanks again. Appreciate y'all. Thank you, Shelley. We'll see you soon, and hope you all have a great day. Thanks.